Yeah, there's a very good way to look at satellite images. We just removed the geography and it looks like we're out there in space. Anyway, that's how it looked out there this evening. Let's head to a much closer type of satellite imagery, the infrared. And we'll look down at the Gulf at our next big weather change, and that's Hurricane Delta. Now, we have been up in the deltas before. Back in 2005, we got all the way to, I believe, Epsilon. I think that's another 3 letters forward. So we're not quite setting a record here, but it looks like we are going to close out the year with that happening. A quick look at the NHC product. There it is, Hurricane Delta, 125 knots sustained winds. And I had to double check that because that's really come up pretty quickly. That puts us in Category 4 territory. So we're only about 11 knots away from a full Cat 5 hurricane. So winds sustained 145 knots, which means the gusts are even higher. And we're down to 956 millibars. That's not particularly low, but it is certainly in that mid-range on the hurricane spectrum. And there's that forecast major hurricane heading for Cozumel, Cancun. It's probably going to hit those areas pretty hard, and then it crosses over the Yucatan, and we see it back out there in the Gulf around Thursday. And then it will be making a beeline for Louisiana. So they've had this track pretty consistently there in central Louisiana, but I think I detect a very slight westward slip on that center line. So I'm not really sure it's actually going to come into Texas or anything like that. The models had pretty good agreement yesterday, but we are going to have to, of course, keep an eye on it and see what the land interactions do to the circulation over the next 1 to 2 days. So there's the weather radar from Cuba. We're not going to see a whole lot at this range. The center of the circulation way down here, but it does look like we're picking up maybe some of the outer spiral bands. And here's the Dvorak curve. This shows a very cold cloud top. I don't really see much of an eye at this time. It is in there, but it is covered by this overcast. And we see that may be affecting the digital Dvorak somewhat. These numbers appear to be falling a little bit lower than the current estimates. And we see that the aircraft earlier did report a peak wind of 121 knots. And the aircraft was seeing an eye beneath that overcast. The current forecast bringing it up to 135 knots. That is not quite Category 5, but it is close enough. And the added intensification, yeah, there probably is some risk of getting a Cat 5 storm. So we shall see what happens, and then it looks like once it's out in the Gulf proper, we're looking at mostly a Category 3 storm. So I'm not going to argue with the experts. I know they've been watching this a whole lot more than I have. But if I do see any discrepancies, we'll talk about it here. Don't worry. And that track into the U.S., it is too early to call because, as I mentioned, the land-hurricane interactions can be kind of chaotic and unpredictable. And there's just simply not the data at this time to have 100% confidence in that track. Well, unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of time tonight. We started kind of late, and I know we don't want to bulk up this episode to where it takes hours to upload. So we're going to kind of run through this quickly. The southeastern U.S. still under the influence of that stagnating polar high located from the Carolinas to Arkansas. Temperatures are still not recovering back up to the 80s we're accustomed to, except in Texas, where it has warmed up. And then down in Florida, looks like we've got that stationary front in place, dividing this very moist tropical air from the somewhat worked over air in southern Georgia. Temperature's a little cooler there, and the dew point's a little warmer. There's a satellite We're doing the webcast so late that you can see the infrared takes over. And we see a little bit of visible and infrared imagery there. I guess we're going to have to be using more of that infrared imagery as we go into winter, since there's not going to be as much daytime illumination. So, yeah, infrared imagery, that's going to be sensitive mostly to the higher clouds. Like you see that spot right there off of South Carolina. Let's run that back. Well, it's actually gone there. But that's part of that cumulonimbus cluster. That's the colder, higher tops on those anvils. And likewise, we don't really see the lower cloud very well at all in the infrared channel. See? Just about gone. Same situation in the northeast. Looks like, actually it looks like there has been a little bit of a change. Not as much low cloud, cumulus, stratocumulus. This is more of a mid to upper cloud band associated with the jet stream. And also some changes out over the western Great Lakes. See that right there? That appears to be possibly a cold air advection system, maybe a cold front up in that region. It's definitely got that curl there, and then we see the domination of lower clouds back behind it. So let's run that animation. Yep, that's moving pretty quickly, and we kind of see the boomerang shape there in the mid clouds. So what do we have at the surface? Well, that appears to be a full-blown frontal system. Not a very big one, but it is an Alberta Clipper coming out of Canada, heading towards the southeast. And yeah, that little boomerang shape that you saw was basically this cloud mass along the occluded front. The triple point in the Minneapolis area, where it's a very balmy 80 degrees, and we can see that that's pretty much about the highest temperature in that part of the country. Go out to the northwest, 60s. Go out to the east, 60s. So that right there is the wedge of warm air marking the transition from the cold front to the warm front. And anything north of that, that's part of the occluded system. In the northwestern U.S., we pick up that tail end of the front, and there's kind of a discontinuity there. That's partly my own error. It does kind of form a wave like that. I didn't see it close to low right there, but I think there's the potential for some cyclogenesis right at that spot. Further to the northwest, ridging, and that's part of that Pacific High way up to the north. And then down south, there's that old plateau high across Idaho and Colorado. And conditions in Washington, Oregon, very warm. Upper 80s in Oregon, and 86 there around, I don't know, what is that, Ellensburg? I don't know all the stations there all that well. But anyway, that's what's going on. We'll check out the satellite. Yeah, there's that persistent northwesterly flow. Certainly some evidence of mountain waves around Banff National Park down to around Great Falls. And let's see, further south, lots of smoke. Yeah, there's a smoke plume right there over Nevada. And then checking out the southwest, it looks like we have a little upper air system in California. You can see that cyclonic appearance to the cloud field and some of that smoke making it into Texas. In the southwest, things dominated by that heat low, making its final return. In southwest Arizona, 103 at Phoenix, pretty warm there. So, yeah, we're back into that continental tropical pattern, and I can just drop that air mass marker right there. Okay, and that does it for our roundup of weather around the U.S. So I see it's almost 7 o'clock. We need to get this video out there. So let me go ahead and start editing that and get it uploaded. We'll talk to you all tomorrow, and we'll cover the latest on Hurricane Delta. And hopefully we'll have a slightly longer video for you all to enjoy. All right, take care, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.